All right, let's dive in today into something that might not sound super exciting on the surface. Employee offboarding and getting company equipment back.
Especially all those laptops.
Yes, especially those laptops.
You sent me a bunch of info on this, and it seems like there's some real hidden costs and risks that most businesses just aren't thinking about.
Absolutely, and that's what we're going to uncover today.
You know, it's one of those things in the employee life cycle that can slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
But it can have a big impact on companies, both financially and when it comes to security.
All right, so let's get down to it.
Yeah.
You talked about some pretty shocking numbers about the actual cost of equipment that doesn't get returned.
Yeah.
Can you break it down for us? What are we looking at here?
Well, the research shows that companies can be losing an average of $5,000 per employee when equipment isn't returned.
Wow, $5,000 per employee.
Yeah, that's not small change, especially if you have a lot of people leaving.
No, it's not.
And these costs can really pile up if you're not careful.
I think most people would probably assume it's just about the cost of buying a new laptop, but obviously there's a lot more to it.
Right.
Where does that $5,000 actually come from?
It's a whole bunch of things. Of course, there's the obvious cost of replacing the equipment itself, but then you have to consider the time that employees are without the equipment they need.
Right.
You know, that lost productivity.
Yeah.
And maybe the biggest risk of all, especially these days, is the potential for data breaches.
Yeah, absolutely.
If those devices have sensitive information on them, it can be a huge problem.
Yeah, because if you lose a laptop with customer data or financial information, it can be a disaster.
Absolutely. A single lost laptop could lead to a massive data leak. You know, you could have regulatory fines, damage to your reputation.
It's fines.
Absolutely. The ripple effects are significant.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can be really serious.
And we know from the Ponemon Institute that data breaches can cost an average of $150 per lost record.
Yeah, it adds up quickly.
So for a company with a lot of customer data, that could easily reach millions of dollars.
Yeah, it's not something to take lightly.
So how can companies protect themselves? It sounds like there's a real balancing act when you're trying to offboard employees and get your property back.
Right.
What are the best ways to do it securely and efficiently?
Being proactive is key. You need a clear process in place, and it has to be well documented. And it all starts before an employee even walks out the door. You need them to sign agreements that lay out exactly what their responsibilities are, you know, what they need to return, when they need to return it. And you've got to have a system to keep track of who has what equipment.
So it's not just a casual, hey, don't forget to bring your laptop back kind of thing.
No, not at all.
It needs to be a lot more formal and organized.
Absolutely. It has to be official and documented. And there needs to be clear communication between everyone involved. You know, HR, IT, the departing employee. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
Right. It sounds like a carefully choreographed dance where everyone knows their steps.
Exactly. And the laptop gets back to IT safe and sound.
Perfect.
But let's be realistic. Things don't always go smoothly, even with the best plans.
What happens if, for whatever reason, an employee doesn't return their equipment?
Right.
Maybe they leave on bad terms or they just forget. What can the company do in those situations?
That's when it can get tricky. That's why having a strong process from the beginning is so important. So usually the first step is to send a friendly reminder. But if that doesn't work, you might have to escalate things.
Right.
You know, send registered letters, maybe even get legal counsel involved. Or in some cases, depending on the laws, you might be able to deduct the cost of the equipment from their final paycheck.
It sounds like getting that equipment back after an employee has left can be a logistical and legal mess.
It can be.
And on top of that, you have the whole data security issue hanging over your head.
Yeah, that's a big concern.
If those devices aren't secured.
Absolutely. That's where a solution like GrowWork can really make a difference. They specialize in handling all the tricky parts of getting that equipment back, from securely wiping data to organizing the shipping and even handling the legal side of things. They take all that off the company's plate, and that gives you peace of mind knowing it's being handled professionally and efficiently.
That sounds fantastic.
Right.
But what about the cost? You mentioned that unreturned equipment can cost companies thousands of dollars per employee. But using a service like GrowWork presumably costs money as well.
Right.
So how do those costs compare? Does it actually make financial sense to use a service like GrowWork?
That's a great question, and that's where the real value of GrowWork comes in. Yes, there is a cost to use their services, but when you compare that to the potential cost of not getting that equipment back, it becomes clear that GrowWork can actually save you money in the long run.
So it's like an insurance policy. You're paying a bit up front to protect yourself from a potentially much bigger loss down the line.
Exactly.
And when you consider those numbers we talked about, $5,000 per employee in potential losses, it seems like a pretty smart investment.
It's all about managing risk and protecting your company's assets. And in today's world where data security and regulations are so important, a proactive approach is essential.
Couldn't agree more.
It's much better to prevent a problem than to try to fix it after it happens.
Absolutely.
So, before we dig deeper into how Grow Work actually works, let's take a moment to hear from you, our listener.
What are you thinking about so far?
What's resonating with you as we talk about the hidden costs and risks of not getting company equipment back? We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive.
So before the break, we were talking about how important it is for companies to recover their equipment from departing employees.
Those costs, especially when it comes to data security, it's pretty alarming for a lot of businesses.
Definitely.
It really highlights why a service like Grow Work is becoming so essential these days. They've really figured out how to make this whole process smooth and effective.
Okay, so let's break down how Grow Work actually does this.
Okay.
What makes them so good at getting that equipment back?
Well, their approach is very strategic. They understand that the easier and less disruptive the process is for the employee, the more likely they are to actually return the stuff.
Right.
So they provide prepaid shipping labels. They even arrange for courier pickups.
Okay.
So the employee doesn't have to go out of their way to pack and ship anything.
That makes a lot of sense. It takes away all those little hurdles that might make someone hesitate to return things quickly.
Exactly. It eliminates the friction points.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just convenience. Grow Work also provides companies with real-time tracking and reporting.
Oh, well.
So you always know where your equipment is.
Okay.
When to expect it back.
So no more guessing games.
Right.
No more wondering if that laptop is stuck somewhere in the mail.
Exactly. You have complete visibility.
It's like having a GPS tracker on your company's assets.
That's a great way to put it.
You can follow their journey back home.
And breathe a sigh of relief when they're safely back in IT's hands.
Exactly.
And that kind of transparency isn't just reassuring. It's a crucial part of data security.
Right. Because if you know exactly where your devices are, you can reduce the risk of them ending up in the wrong hands.
Absolutely.
And speaking of data security, that's another area where Grow Work really excels. They don't just retrieve the equipment.
Right.
They also make sure that all the sensitive data on those devices is wiped clean.
They have very strict data wiping protocols. They go beyond just deleting files.
Okay.
They make sure that data is completely irrecoverable.
Wow.
They meet all the industry standards.
That must be a huge relief for companies.
It is.
Knowing that their confidential information is protected.
Absolutely. Especially in industries with strict regulations like healthcare or finance.
Right.
Where data breaches can lead to huge fines.
Yeah, the consequences can be really serious. So it sounds like they've really thought of everything.
They try to.
But what about their actual track record? Have you seen any data on how successful they are at getting this equipment back?
Yeah, they report a 98% equipment recovery rate.
98%?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's really high.
Especially when you think about how difficult it can be for companies to manage this on their own.
It's a testament to their effectiveness.
What do you think contributes to their success? Is it just the ease of their process, or is there more to it?
It's a combination of things. The streamlined logistics definitely help.
Yeah.
But they're also very proactive about communicating with both the employees and the companies.
So,
they keep everyone informed every step of the way.
So there's a lot of transparency.
Exactly.
It sounds like they've really cracked the code on this whole equipment recovery challenge.
They've made it their specialty.
Did you find any other companies in your research that offer a similar service to Grow Work?
There are a few others out there. But Grow Work really stands out. Their approach is so comprehensive. And they have a proven track record.
They've really set the standard.
They have.
Earlier we talked about how the costs associated with unreturned equipment can really add up.
Yeah.
Thousands of dollars per employee. But of course, using a service like Grow Work also has a cost.
Right.
So how do those costs compare?
That's the key question.
Yeah.
And that's where the real value of Grow Work comes in.
Okay.
Yes, there's a fee for their services. But when you weigh that against the potential costs of not recovering that equipment,
right,
it quickly becomes clear that Grow Work is a smart investment.
It's like we said before, it's an insurance policy.
Yeah.
You're paying a small amount up front to protect yourself from a much bigger financial hit later on.
Exactly.
Like having to replace equipment, deal with potential data breaches.
Right.
All those lost productivity costs.
It all adds up.
And when you consider those big numbers we talked about.
Yeah.
That $5,000 per employee in potential loss.
It makes you think.
It really seems like a wise investment.
And it's not just about the money, it's also about the peace of mind.
Knowing that your company's assets and data are in good hands.
Exactly. It takes a lot of worry off your shoulders.
Before we move on, I want to check in with you, our listener.
What are your thoughts so far?
What's standing out to you as we explore this whole issue of equipment recovery?
And what about the role of a service like GrowWork?
We'll be back in a moment to continue our exploration of this fascinating topic. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been digging into the world of company equipment recovery.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty eye-opening, to say the least.
It really is. It's one of those things that gets overlooked until it blows up into a big problem.
Yeah, it's easy to put it on the back burner.
Right.
But as we've been discussing,
Yeah.
the potential costs and risks are just too significant to ignore.
Absolutely. Companies really need to be proactive about this.
We've talked about the financial impact,
Right.
replacing equipment, the lost productivity, and of course, the huge threat of data breaches.
It's a big deal.
It's clear that this is not something businesses can afford to sweep under the rug.
No, not at all. And the interesting thing is that there are solutions out there, like GrowWork, that not only address these challenges,
Right.
but can actually save companies money in the long run.
It's like a win-win.
Exactly.
Their 98% equipment recovery rate is just incredible.
And impressive.
It makes you wonder why more companies aren't using a service like this.
I think there's still a lack of awareness out there about the true costs and risks.
Yeah.
A lot of companies might think it's just a minor hassle
Right.
or just a cost of doing business.
Yeah, they don't realize how big of an impact it can have.
But when you look at the numbers,
Mm-hmm.
it's clear that being proactive can really pay off.
As we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm struck by how something as seemingly simple as equipment recovery
Uh-huh.
can actually reveal a lot about a company's overall approach to risk and data security.
It's a good point. It's like a microcosm of a bigger issue.
Yeah.
Are you reacting to problems after they happen?
Right.
Or are you putting things in place to prevent those problems in the first place?
Are you being proactive?
Exactly.
And when it comes to protecting your company's assets and reputation,
Yeah,
a little planning goes a long way.
it really does.
It's about being one step ahead, right?
Yeah.
Identifying those potential risks
Yeah.
and putting solutions in place before they become major headaches.
That's the key.
And in the case of equipment recovery, it seems like GrowWork has really figured that out.
They've definitely set a high bar for the industry.
Yeah, they've become the gold standard.
And their success shows the power of focusing on a specific problem
Right.
and developing a streamlined, efficient solution.
Yeah, they found a formula that works.
And it gets results.
So for anyone listening who's still using those old school ad hoc methods for getting equipment back,
Yeah.
it might be time to rethink that strategy.
Because it's worth considering.
The potential costs of doing nothing are just too high.
Absolutely. It's about making smart decisions.
Yeah.
Weighing the risks and the rewards.
Finding solutions that protect your company.
Both financially and in terms of its reputation.
That's a great takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of company equipment recovery.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful.
Yeah?
And maybe even a little inspiring. Remember, being proactive is key.
Absolutely.
And there are solutions out there that can make a real difference.
So don't wait until it's too late.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep